Today, my 5 million subscribers, we're gonna go on a private jet. Whoa, Casey Neistat. Casey Neistat's in the house. Casey Neistat camera, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this a lot, and it's gonna go like that, and then we're gonna go, Oh, I just fucking broke it. That makes me Casey Neistat. I just broke it. I didn't know how much Casey Neistat I had in me. I'm a really big fan of Casey Neistat, actually, even though he does break a lot of stuff. I subscribed to him way back with the bicycle video a couple years ago, and he's a very, very creative guy, and he definitely knows a lot about cameras. Not denying that. But my new camera that I got is way better than Casey Neistat's camera. I gotta tell you, we're gonna talk about cameras today. You like talking about cameras? We're gonna talk about cameras. This is my Canon T3i. I've had this for quite a while, a few years now. I mean, these things are pretty old now, but it's very similar to Casey Neistat's camera, the 80D that he has, the Canon 80D. He's always talking about him. Unfortunately, it's not the best camera for the money. I'm gonna come out right now and say that. What you're looking at me through right now is the best camera for the money. The 80D that he uses is a little bit better than something like this. It's not that bad. I'm not saying it's a terrible camera. They upped the bit rate of the video, so it's now 90 megabits a second versus a lame 40 megabits a second. It used to be on something like this. They upped the codec, like basically the down sampling from the sensor to the compression and stuff. It's sharper, the image looks sharper, so they improved that. Hopefully they improve the audio input. That's my biggest complaint about these things, is the preamp in the audio jack is just very noisy. They also add a continuous autofocus to the 80D in those type of cameras. So in video mode, they do continuous autofocus. I was always stuck with manual focus on this old thing. But that still doesn't compare for the money. My camera I bought is cheaper than the 80D, and it's way better. I'm sorry, it shoots 4K, it does high speed, it does a lot of stuff that the Canon 80D doesn't. And for vlogs and stuff, there actually are some reasons you would want to use a camera like this versus the camera I'm using. I'll explain that. But if you're looking for filmmaking camera, something with incredible quality, don't get a Canon 80D. I'm sorry. We're all very big fans of Canon. Anyone into video and photography, we all have a bunch of these lenses out the wazoo that only are made for Canon cameras. They only fit on Canon cameras, but you can get an adapter to fit on a different name brand camera, and that's what I had to do. It's not something I wanted to do. I wasn't even interested in it. We want to buy a Canon. All of us video guys and stuff, we want to buy a Canon camera, except Canon kind of slacking behind and not really keeping up with the times, and there's other manufacturers killing them. And let me show you, reveal the camera I use right now. All right, entering Casey Neistat mode. This is the new camera. Well, all this stuff is just kind of like accessories on it, but the camera itself is this Sony a6300. And this little thing is crazy. It does 4K video, and actually 6K downsampled to 4K, so it's very sharp. At 100 megabits a second video codec. And the reason I bought it is because it does 120 frames per second in full HD 1080p, and it looks great too. It's crazy. This little camera is nuts, and it's cheaper than the Canon 80D. So just by those specs alone, really, it basically blows the Canon 80D away. It also has logarithmic picture profiles, S-Log3. I use that, and then I use a film LUT. If I'm getting way over your head here, it's basically a way to get more dynamic range out of the camera. It shoots like a very flat, gray looking image, and then you apply a correction to it after that. So I shooting that, and it really does crazy stuff to the colors and stuff, and makes it look really cool. So the camera is nuts. I mean, I can't talk enough about this little thing. I'm gonna take it off of here to, get rid of all this stuff, because this stuff's cool. I got the LCD monitor and stuff, so I can record myself and see what I'm doing, because it does not have a flip out monitor. And that's one of the few reasons why it may not be a great camera actually for vlogging and stuff. So there are reasons why Casey Neistat wouldn't want to use this camera, but for filmmaking and stuff, it absolutely destroys. So this is it right here. Tiny little camera. It's Sony a6300, and it has this cord on it because I'm running an external battery, and I'm using a dummy battery in it, and it has a cord in it. And that's one of the reasons, well, another one of the reasons actually why it may not be a great vlogging camera. It does have a drawback in 4K mode. It actually overheats. So especially if you're holding it in your hand, you got all this heat building up here, you can record like 15-20 minutes in 4K mode before it has to shut off and cool down. So that's a big drawback. But using an external battery and not holding it in your hand, I haven't actually had it shut down on me at all now. I've recorded for like an hour straight with it just to test it out. So that helps and that fixes it. People have other fixes. They get a little cage for it, aluminum cage, take some of the heat away, flipping out the monitor and stuff. So there's workarounds for that. And frankly, shooting 4K is really a big burden, especially for vlog videos and most YouTube videos. I find myself, even though I'm shooting 4K, I'll just do the project in 1080p when I edit it and render it out in 1080p because 4K is kind of overkill, honestly. But it's crazy though. It's still good to have, and it still shoots an insane looking picture. I mean, I'm sure you could tell when I switched from this to the T3i how big of a difference what we're looking at here. It probably looks like garbage, and I'm sorry if it sounds like garbage because I don't have my external mic plugged in. It's a very echoey room here. I gotta get some stuff up on the walls. The slow motion 120 frames a second in 1080p mode on this camera sold me 100% on this thing. I had to have it after I saw what it could do with that. And I've been shooting a lot of dog videos in that type of mode, 120 frames a second, and it looks awesome. I mean, the only step up from this for slow motion stuff is like a Blackmagic Ursa, which is $5,000. So even the next Sony up doesn't have the 120 frames a second, the A7S. There really is no other camera like that with that kind of frame rate for $1,000. I mean, come on, this thing is crazy. So another thing, of course, it's a Sony and we all got these Canon lenses. Well, they don't go on here. You gotta get an adapter. And with these adapters, unless you spend $400 on one, you really have no great autofocus conversion to your Canon lenses, and even then you might not. So I have been using the kit lens a lot, and it's actually pretty sharp lens. Just at the widest setting, it has a little bit of vignetting around the edges, slightly. That's the only thing I've noticed for it. It's not a big aperture lens or nothing, but it is a nice little convenient lens, especially if you're just taking this thing, pointing and throwing it and going and shooting stuff. It's really good little lens. The biggest reason I'm actually using it a lot is because of the continuous autofocus. Now, there's been a lot of autofocus tests between this camera and the 80D, and in my opinion, I think that the continuous autofocus on this is better. It really kills. I mean, especially when I'm shooting that slow motion video and I'm moving the camera around a lot and I got dogs and stuff moving around, the continuous autofocus on this is amazing. And I've never even used autofocus before, I'll be honest with you. On my other camera, it's all manual focus. That's what I'm used to. I've always used that. The camera doesn't have autofocus in video mode, so got really used to that. We're gonna put this on here. So yes, there is a camera attached to that lens, believe it or not. The camera is so tiny, it's crazy. I mean, it's technology for you that they could do what this camera does at this tiny little camera. But yep, there is a camera attached to that lens, so trying to handle this is pretty nuts. Now, even though the camera is awesome, like I said, I already pointed out some things that make it probably not the ideal vlogging camera. Working with 4K is kind of overkill for that stuff in the first place. Doesn't have the flip out screen, it overheats, so we have some issues there. But like I said, for me, I can work around all that stuff there. And I don't even care. This thing could be in the form of, I don't care what form factor it came in. Once I saw what it could do with the slow motion and the 4K, I got it. I don't care the drawbacks. But if I'm going to be real picky about it, okay, there's some stuff I don't like. The SD card goes in the bottom. So every time I got to swap out an SD card, I got to pull the camera off of the rig and all that. So that gets to be a pain in the butt. Or anytime I'm done shooting, I want to put it in the computer, got to do that. It doesn't feel totally great to hold on to. Like, it doesn't have the big hand grip that the Canon cameras do. It feels like it's gonna flip right out of your hand, On the photography side, on the photography side of the on the photography side of the Sony a6300, I've barely taken 8 pictures with it. And one of the reasons why actually is because Sony's RAW format that they comes up on your computer, I have not even been able to open it on my computer. I've tried to install drivers and stuff. I don't know. I can't get it to work. But either way, I don't even really care about taking pictures since the video is what I mostly do. But it does do an insane burst mode in like 11 frames a second or something. The burst mode is crazy. Can I even plug it in here and show you? So here is the burst mode on this thing. Check this out. And then it starts to run out buffer. But that's taking full frame, 20 bajillion megapixels. I don't even know how many megapixels it is. That's a lot. Full pictures that fast, 11 frames a second. So if you do any sports photography or a lot of action stuff, that's the camera to get. That is crazy. And then it runs out of buffer pretty fast. Let me try it again. That's nuts. So, I mean, I haven't utilized that. I've just been using it for video, but that is crazy. So yeah, then all this stuff I have on here, this is just the LCD monitor. This is $100 on eBay. Nice little LCD monitor. This is a Takstar cheap microphone. I gotta like fix it. It's not on there tight. And that plugs in the camera. Sounds great on the camera when you're not in a really echoey room. This external battery deal, I gotta actually mount that on there legit too. So, and then this is a Film City cage. All this stuff's not really expensive, all these accessories. So you can really outfit a camera like this pretty nicely for that, for not a lot of money, and you can start making some really nice high quality videos. So my plea to the people at Canon, I will talk directly to the CEOs of Canon. We don't want to buy a Sony camera. None of us want to buy a stupid Sony camera. You're forcing us to. We got all your Canon lenses that fit Canon cameras. We've been Canon fanboys our entire lives, and we don't want to buy any other camera. But you're not stepping up to the plate. You're not making 4K cameras. What is going on? They're obliterating you, absolutely destroying you. And give me a Canon camera with the same features as this, and I will sell it right now and get a Canon. That's all I got to say. I mean, come on. And of course, Canon is worried about putting all the features from their cinema cameras on a camera at a lower price point, and they'll never sell any of the $5,000 cameras, basically. And apparently Sony doesn't care. But you know, like the overheating stuff, like I don't think that's intentional part of the design, but you do what this camera does in such a tiny form factor, it's not going to have the greatest cooling capacity for how much, you know, heat it produces. So maybe it was kind of engineered that way. They don't really care. Hey, if it overheats, that means you can't use it professionally for professional productions, and then that still reserves us to sell our higher end stuff. And that's what Sony basically, that's their way around it. And they can still sell $1,000 cameras that obliterate other brand names. So hopefully none of my joking around anyone is offended or thinks I don't like Casey Neistat. Although he does support Hillary Clinton and she is the most corrupt person ever run for president. I don't want to get into a political discussion here, but let's just be honest. And politics aside, he's a great guy, very, very talented and creative. And above all that, I don't know how he makes videos every single day and does what he does. That's insane. So major props to him. But I just wanted to compare. He's always talking about cameras, and he's always like Canon. And I'm like, dude, no, people got to know, man. Canon's kind of slacking these days. Not a fan, man. We want Canon cameras. Believe me, we all do. Not when you get something for cheaper that is way better. Sorry.